Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. I'm back with another Legacy video, and today we're talking about this amazing new deck that I had great performance with. We're going to go over 10 matches that I played. I won't spoil anything, but let's go ahead and take a look at the deck. So I switched to this deck reluctantly because I love Beanstalk. I love my Bug Beans deck over here, but it was just getting destroyed. It was not doing well, even with the two main deck Nile spell bombs. They just were totally dead in a lot of non-Delver, non-Rescam mashups, and I just couldn't get it to work. I actually am embarrassed to admit this, but I'll admit it because I'm sure this happens to a lot of people. I queued into a league, and I just got completely destroyed. I got the reverse trophy with Bug Beans, and this coming hot off the heels of several really good leagues, including a trophy last week. So I'm not sure about this deck because I'm going to go to Japan and I'm going to be playing a lot of tournaments every day at Hallelujah in Shinjuku in the center of Tokyo at their tournament center. And I don't want to be rocking a deck that's just going to fall over and completely stop functioning against Rescam. I do want to be able to at least put up a fighting chance against Rescam. Rescaminator, of course, being the deck that is totally dominating Legacy right now, and it's caused a lot of tournaments are getting canceled because the deck is just overpowered, and all the spike type people feel that they have to play the powerful deck. So it's like 50% of the online meta. Now, in this video, we're going to review 2 matches against Rescam, but I'm happy to say that there are lots of other decks that I went up against here. But let's talk about this deck. So, first of all, it's very similar, almost exactly the same mana base as Beans. The active cards that are different really are, instead of up the Beanstalk, we have this card, Tamiyo, Inquisitive Student. And it's one of those cards that flips over. It's a 1-mana Planeswalker is what it is. And essentially, each time you attack with it, you create a clue, which is an artifact that you can pay to and tap, sacrifice, and you can draw a card. So it's essentially like a really slow card draw engine. Every time you attack with your 0/3 flyer, you get a clue. And over time, you can amass advantage. Now, if you manage to flip it, you get a much more powerful Planeswalker. It's one of the weakest Planeswalkers ever printed, but it's a 1-mana Planeswalker, right? So it basically, every other turn, you can kind of regrow a card from your library, an instant or a sorcery. So again, a pretty weak effect, but if you get it up to 7 loyalty, you can draw half your deck, which just ends the game functionally. So this becomes kind of an alternative win con. If you remember like Liliana the Last Hope and cards like that, where essentially it just ticks up and eventually when you ultimate, the game is functionally over. Even though the card itself is not that powerful, the ultimate is so powerful that it's just almost impossible to overcome. Yeah, well, this is one of those kinds of cards, and it's a blue card that pitches to force quite good. The rest of the cards are very similar to Beanstalk, to Bug Beans. So you've got Stifle, you've got Spell Pierce, you've got 3 Dazes. So again, not too far into the tempo plan, but far enough. We're playing Bowmasters, still not in the sideboard, but in the main deck. It's still very good, as we'll see in these matches. And 4 Psychic Frog, which is definitely the MVP of these 2 leagues we're going to review. And then 3 Uros, 2 Brazen Borrowers, and in terms of removal, we've got 2 Fatal Push, 3 Fatal Push, 2 Dismembers, and in the sideboard, we have this cool card, Go for the Throat, which I had to get the classic Go for the Throat art. I just love it. She's just like, oh, no. And the zombie's like, yes. So metal. All right, so let's take a look. This is only playing 1 Hydroblast, which I was like, really? 1 Hydroblast? But all right. I went ahead and upgraded. So Squiddward is the gentleman on the Death Shadow Discord, of all places. And he seems to have pioneered the deck, perhaps with some involvement of Mr. UC, Underground Sea, the long-time Death Shadow aficionado. Death Shadow, of course, is not as powerful as it once was, so a lot of people have moved over to using cards like Uro and, of course, Tamiyo. So we're going to see a lot of that in action here. The other thing to note is they have a very aggressive anti-scam sideboard package, right? 2 Veil of Summer, 2 Ground Seal, 2 Carpets, one Tormod's Crypt, right? And these cards are pretty aggressive, like in terms of the cost. Like Ground Seal is a lot of mana, but it doubles as protection for your Uro, and it cantrips, and it just stays in play and basically locks out Rescam's reanimation plan. So it's quite a powerful card, and I'm excited to show it in action. It does do stuff. And then I went ahead and went up to 4 Force Negations. I think he was running 3, but like there's just, you don't want to lose to these annoying Oops decks or Necro decks, and just having a whole lot of forces is a good way to kind of stop that. All right, let's dive into the games. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment about how ridiculous this deck is that is playing this kind of janky 1 mana Planeswalker, and that is the source of its power, as opposed to the almighty Beanstalk that's been dominating Legacy for the past year. So we're going to jump over into my replays. So I'm going to start here against Harmony Woods. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So Harmony Woods. I played against this person quite a few times. They seem to be a really strong player, and I looked them up to see what they'd been playing, and I'm going to just jump over and show you what came up. So they've been playing a lot of Rescam. It's not actually Rescam. It's similar to this deck, actually. Sorry, I didn't mean to accuse them of being a filthy Rescam player. They're playing like Nethergoyf. They're also playing Tamiyo, so it's very similar to what we're playing, except they're much more in on Nethergoyf instead of Uro. And as a result, it is a little bit more of a tempo deck. They've got Hymn to Torok here. Yeah, so it's a very cool deck, and they're playing Mishra's Bauble to turn on Nethergoyf and make it stronger. So we're going to see, like, this was one of my first outings with the deck, and I think, yeah, let's go ahead and I'm just going to put this back here. We're going to check it out. So I got to go first, and I'm going to keep this. This is like a solid hand against Rescam. First of all, you don't want to, or I'm sorry, against any sort of like blue-black mirror. There's no grief in his 75 that I could see. So assuming that they are playing the same deck that is listed there, great. This is just a super versatile hand. It's got removal. It's got Bowmasters. If it's a control mirror, it's got Wasteland. If it's an Urza Saga deck, this is basically your perfect opening hand. And it's got Daze or Force of Will, depending on how the game unfolds. You could use either of those to stop their threats. So here, we both just have our opening. I go get my Surveil land. I waste. That might have been an aggressive waste. They bring out Tamiyo. I just immediately push the Tamiyo because I have extra pushes, and I just don't want to risk. I want to be mana efficient here, hold up a lot of mana because they are playing Daze. And they Psychic Frog. And Psychic Frog, of course, I can just push, but I'm like, well, let's try just dazing it, and that works. So great. I get to, my Daze is, its equity is going down as the game progresses, but I was able to convert it. Here they are able to Wasteland me, but I don't want to lose a land here. I'm going to just protect with Stifle. So Stifle can be used defensively as well. Then they've got another Tamiyo. I have another push for this. They didn't have Daze earlier. I think it makes sense to push now, but for some reason I didn't. I think maybe that was a mistake because it was unlikely that they would have drawn Daze there. Let's see if they protect her. They don't protect her. And she's not, frankly, worth protecting in most cases. You'll see some of the cool ways you can protect her in a little bit. I'll showcase just the ability to turn her into a Planeswalker when removal's on the stack. So this was a really dumb misplay. I should have forced this Bowmaster because they wasted me down and I didn't have enough mana to Bowmaster their Bowmaster, and this is a really sad game, actually. We'll go ahead and see it because this was just one of those things where I got greedy and I didn't force, and I didn't really stop to think. And it was just a reflexive, oh, I got like a bunch of Bowmasters. I'll let them resolve without realizing, like, oh, damn, if I don't draw any land, I'm not going to be able to Bowmaster their Bowmaster. And so I have to, ponder in, and they have a second Bowmaster that they cast out, and there's no land in sight, and I'm about to take a ton of damage, so I think I just scoop. And you could argue that there's more game to be played, but it definitely felt over there. All right, so Harmony Woods, game 2. And I'm on the play again. And this, again, is a solid keep. Like this, I should not lose this game, in my opinion. But Tamiyo comes out. I think it would be over aggressive to dismember Tamiyo, considering they've got Nethergoyf and stuff like that. Keep in mind, this is basically my first outing. I played one league before this league. So I'm still very much new to the play patterns of this deck. But yeah, I do go ahead and I pay the life just in case they have Daze, keep my mana up. And I think that was a big mistake, by the way. I should have tapped Undercity Sewer instead of Bayou, so I could have kept Veil up. And let's see if that haunts me. It doesn't. Interesting tech here. They've got this card. It's called Deep Analysis. And you can flash it back and make people draw cards. So you can force people to draw into your Bowmasters, for example. Another Tamiyo. And unfortunately, I don't... Oh, I draw a remove spell. Yeah, and this time I'm smart. I leave my Bayou up so that I can Veil if I need to. Nethergoyf. And I really just didn't think much of the Nethergoyf, but then I just realized, oh my goodness, it's 5/6. It's already out of Dismember range. That card is really good, by the way. I think it's a sleeper. Okay, and here they're coming in for some damage. This Stifle just sitting in my hand doing nothing. I am getting some Soul Ring effect off of the carpet, but at this point, I Veil. I successfully protect my frog. I don't have to pitch my whole hand, though. And I'm not sure about pitching my whole hand here. I can wait a turn. If I pitch my whole hand, then it just bounces off. But then I lose a lot of what I've got going on, including the other frog. And I think, yeah, I'm not crazy enough to pitch that juicy hand there. So I go ahead and play a second frog, and now, unfortunately, one of the frogs is on chump duty. I could pitch my hand here. Actually, I think it's good to pitch hand here to block. Well, now I have to, since they killed one of mine. So I'll just pitch my hand here, buff the frog to where it's also a 5/6. Negates the damage Nethergoyf was going to do. But keep in mind, the little engine that could is over here generating value turn after turn. All right, and I've got Uro, which gives me some life, gives me a little bit of padding, but I'm not going anywhere. I don't have any lands. Their wastelands have been very effective. I'm not even sure how many times they wasted me here. Let's take a look at their graveyard. They just wasted me once. I just was struggling on mana. And it's weird to be struggling on mana when you have a carpet. So here I can attempt to take out the Tamiyo, but I don't really have an answer to the second Nethergoyf. I can gain 2 life, but I'm still dead. So this is actually a pointless exercise. They had the force anyway. So cheers to Harmony Woods, fighting the good fight against Rescam. They're out there playing with, frankly, the deck that I'm playing right now. This is not as good as Rescam. It just isn't. No deck is as good as Rescam. So anybody who's willing to experiment, even when there's this toxic environment of Rescam players, some of whom were really kind and many of whom were just really rude and cold. Yeah. Kudos to them. So next I'm up against Bumpy. And let's take a look at Bumpy on TCG Player. Or, on MTG Goldfish here. So they frequently play Doomsday. Doomsday is a deck that I think is underpowered in general. There are some Doomsday specialists that just always beat me and always have some crazy trick that I didn't think of. But in general, I think whatever control deck I'm playing is probably favored against Doomsday. And that may sound unfair to Doomsday, but I just don't think it's a very dangerous deck to pilot. And if they're not getting got by me, they're probably getting got by all the grief scam out there. Okay, so here we go. I'm mulling to 5. No, wait, they're mulling to 5. I'm mulligan to 5 as well. So we're both going kind of idiot mode, I think is Bosch and Roll calls it. And I opt to keep my Force of Will because, again, I think they're on Doomsday. That's a weird opening for a Doomsday deck. That's when I realized, they're probably on some sort of Nadu deck. Because Sylvan Safekeeper, that's not a card that generally... it could be like an Elves deck, but Elves decks don't generally play Brainstorm because they need a high density of creatures. So I'm not sure what they're doing here. But my Psychic Frog's out. And they're attempting to plow it. And then they're attempting the Nomads. Okay, so this definitely confirms that they're on some sort of Nadu deck because you don't generally play Nomads but Sylvan Safekeeper, huh? Like, I've never seen that in a breakfast list. So I'm not sure quite what they are on, but then I kind of realized, well, they're probably on some sort of Bant version. Okay, I'm drawing cards off, and I opt to hold the Tamiyo just because I'm not sure what I'm up against, and I want to be able to force here. And they can get anything 3 mana. If I just force this, then I've got a whole turn where I can attack and, I can surveil and do all this other stuff to set up. So I go ahead and force here. They're down to 1 card. So at this point, even though I'm really far behind on lands, I'm really favored. And then I draw Uro, and, Uro just, over time, it's a great late game engine if they can't end the game quickly enough. So they have a second Nomads, but they don't have the Nadu. So I'm going to go ahead and attack in. Note that I'm being very patient, and I'm not putting any counters on Psychic Frog. I think you usually just want to do that when you're alpha striking, unless you're up against an aggro deck that doesn't have very much removal. Then you can and you'll see that later when I'm up against Moon Stompy and decks like that. So here, I just, and at this point, Bumpy, my opponent, observes that Frog is nuts, and I concur. This Frog has already drawn me like 5 or 6 cards. Witherbloom Command also kind of nuts here anyway. I put a Force into my hand, and I'm just like going to the races. Bristly Bill's a cool card, but he's no match for what I've got coming. All right, game 2. Let's see what I get in my opening 7 here. I'm on the draw. Usually on the draw, I'll show you my sideboard decisions real quick. Use sideboard. So usually on the draw, I take out all my tempo cards, and I took out the 3 Dazes, but I left in the Spell Pierce because they're playing Green Sun Zenith, and I also left in the Stifle because there are a lot of juicy Stifle targets. Stifle has never been a better card than it is right now, in my humble opinion. Okay, so this is a keep because we didn't see any Wastelands, and I think it's safe. We've got land into Ponder. Yeah, so this is a great hand. Carpet can do some real work here. All right, so I see a Wasteland on top, and I just decide I'm not going to waste here. I really want to get colored mana, because if I draw the waste and they have a waste of their own, or they have a Nadu or something, I'm going to feel like a fool. Okay, and now we see that they are also playing Uro, and they've ramped significantly. So I'm pretty glad that I threw away that Wasteland, and now I feel really vindicated, because now I've got my colors up. I've got both black and green. And so they only have 1 island out, and sometimes I'll wait to get a second, wait for them to put a few more islands down before I play out Carpet. But I'm like, nah, I'm going to play out Carpet, because what can we do with Carpet? We can go ahead and cast one of our Psychic Frogs. So yeah, just using Carpet as like a little Soul Ring type effect. All right, and Plow. And I just let it happen because I've got another Frog. And I don't want to, I don't think they're playing Daze, but I don't want to get blown out when I'm tapped out. Okay, so I can put back my, I think I put back the Wasteland there. You can see I've got a lot of good anti-creature cards. The way you beat Cephalid Breakfast, and by extension, like Bant, Nadu decks, is just with creature removal. I mean, ideally you want to force it so they don't get any benefit. Let's see. It looks like they might have been tapping out for a Nadu here. And who is it? Who's our least favorite bird in this matchup? Oh, they're bringing Uro back. Okay, that makes sense. So I have lots of ways of killing Uro. I'm not terribly worried about it. I think we just clear the path and we just go ahead and swing in. You'll notice by keeping the path clear, I haven't had to exile any cards, which you can give Psychic Frog flying by exiling cards. Oh, they're besiegeing my city, my Carpet, but it's done its job. So here, I didn't recognize this card, and I wasn't sure exactly what it does. And I'm like, how does Bestow work and all this stuff? Like, I can go look it up, but you can see I'm already down about a minute and a half on clock. And I'm just like, I'll just get rid of this, and then it's an enchantment. It'll fizzle, right? Well, no. Apparently, it's a creature that survives. So I should have just waited and killed that. And I think that's what cost me this game. So now I've got a fistful of land. I don't see an Uro coming anytime soon. Let me pop this out so we can see if Uro is making an appearance. Not yet. And I'm basically on empty. Like, I've got this Frog. But if they're able to remove this Frog, then I'm pretty done. And Uro's back. So I think I can play out the frog. Witherbloom is kind of cool because I can waste one of their lands and remove their carpet. That's one of the reasons you play Witherbloom. When they plow that, I'm just like, this game's over, more or less. Like, who knows how long it'll be before I can't fetch any surveil lands. And I think I went ahead and drew a couple cards at the end of the game just to make sure, and I was just drawing lands. So I saved myself some clock there. It's an important skill to like know when you're quitting because you're salty and you're like, damn it, I screwed up. Like I really did screw up there, not going after the Nantuko thing or whatever it was called, the creature with endow, bestow. That was a mistake, but I don't think that was why I quit here. I think it was just because I genuinely didn't see a path to victory with Uro out on the table. Let's go into game 3. So you want to avoid the tilted concedes, and you want to like gravitate toward the concede because it's this tactical decision to save time, right? And I use my full clock. There have been 2 times in the past week where I've gone to 1 minute or 1 second on the clock and won, and that is extremely nerve-wracking. And I used to say, I need to play faster, but I talked to Mr. UC, the Death Shadow player, and he was like, actually, I try to like use as much of my clock as possible. It's just like chess clocks, right? Like chess masters don't worry like, oh, I'm sorry, I played so slowly, right? They use, if it's like an 8-hour game or something, they're going to use all that clock to think about all the different possibilities and stuff. And managing your clock, a lot of people get salty and angry, and they'll be like, my goodness, look at the time difference. Quit wasting my time, all this stuff. And I was like, hey, man, like, so this game, I basically just blew them out. They didn't. So I was kind of talking and I clicked through it, but basically I wasted their trop. They had a Delighted Halfling, and I pushed that, and then they just never. They didn't draw a land, and they might have drawn a land. I didn't have any pressure. They've got 8 cards. They could have definitely recovered, and they may have just been tilted because they kept a 1-lander, and I had like the perfect foil for that. Okay, so let's go into the next match against Zana Zero. All right, and let's see. I'm not sure if Zana... Yeah, I have Zana Zero up here. Painter player. A deck I have a great deal of respect for. It's a very high-skill deck. But they're playing a blue painter here, it looks like. Ooh. Also a very cool deck. Not as high-skill as red painter, in my opinion. But still, it's a defensible deck, in my opinion. All right, so enough of my personal deck preferences. Let's see what happens. So we jump in here, and I've got, against Painter, they're not playing any Wastelands. This is great. I mean, this is like all gas, no brakes. Let's hook it up. And then I see the Underground Sea, and I'm like, wait a second. You didn't switch to the dark side, did you? Okay, there's the frog. And I really want to make sure this frog dies, but I also want to really hit my land drop. So I think the correct play here is to fetch, find a surveil land, and wait and see if we draw a second land so we can kill this frog Daze proof. So, yeah, I found a land. Great. The surveil lands are amazing. Like, I was so skeptical early on, but I'm a believer in most contexts. Even in a tempo deck like this, I think they're worth it. And one benefit of the surveil lands is everybody has to play one fewer dual land of each of the color they're putting that in. So it increases, in theory, the supply of dual lands out there, because you probably aren't going to play all 4 Underground Seas or all 4 Volcanic Islands, right? So I think their deck actually may play all 4. Okay, so Tamiyo came out. It did its job by being a lightning rod for removal. They play another Psychic Frog. I play a frog. My hand is bigger than theirs, but when they draw, their hand is going to be as big as mine. Now, this is, unfortunately, I don't have the mana, and this is why Rescam is such a devious deck. They just pressure you so much, and like, even though I've got plenty of interaction, I've had to spend all my mana like trying to keep their frog at bay and answer everything, and it's just, you're always behind against Rescam, especially on the draw. So note that here I could have pierced, but they had mana open. So yeah, and I didn't hit anything, and Archon's going to come in. It's going to wipe out my frog, so I just scoop. Again, probably like 1% or less to win this game after an Archon resolves. Like my outs, actually I don't have any main deck outs. Oh, Brazen borrowing it back to the hand and then somehow not being able to answer it. But they're going to be so many cards ahead, and they've got an active frog. I don't think it's winnable. All right, let's go over to game 2. I'm just going to make sure this is recording all right. Don't want to like sit here in my room by myself for 2 hours only to find that it's not recording. Game 2. Okay. So I'm on the play, and this hand looks ridiculous. Look at this. This is where Tormod's Crypt really comes in strong. I mean, it's not going to matter that much this game because I am on the play. But just being able to play it, I can actually play Tormod's Crypt and I can play Carpet. And because they only have one land other than their Wastelands that doesn't produce green, it probably is correct to just go ahead and play that out so I don't have to worry about them dazing it later. So I've got the mana online next turn. I think that was a misplay on my part to not play it out. So here we go. They're going to go get... okay, and I mean, one upside to me not playing the Carpet out immediately is now it's going to generate a lot more mana when I do play it, but it might get forced or it might get dazed or something. Okay, so I'm able to push here. I fetch a Surveil land, and let's see. Top card is Uro. You love surveilling those away. I've got my Carpet out. I don't quite have enough mana to bring him back. But I do have enough mana to bring it back, but I don't have enough cards. So I think at this point it makes sense to go ahead and probably do the other Uro is what I would do. Yeah. And sure enough, gain some extra life, put an extra land in the play. Don't mind if I do. We're in a very dominant position brought to us by this Tormod's Crypt. Okay, so they reanimate here, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not actually going to pop the Tormod's Crypt because they've got 5 cards in hand. This Tormod's Crypt may be holding back a lot of stuff. So I go ahead and Bowmaster, and they are not able to answer it, and I get a bunch of Bowmaster triggers, and they scoop. Game 3. So just to be clear, like we're up a game, or we're not up a game, but we're 1-1 against Rescam. Like that never happens to me. I always get completely crushed by Rescam, and that's how it's been for like the past few months. It's just like, oh great, I queued into Rescam again, or I play against it. Like I'm like ready to win a tournament at our weekly, and then I have to play against somebody on Rescam. You know, it's just like a cursed deck for me. So for a lot of people, it's an annoying deck, but for me, it's just like my ultimate nemesis. So the fact that this deck can hold up to it, and granted, I'm new to this deck, but Squiddward, the guy that I presume is a male, the male character is Squiddward. They are quite good at the deck. I think they were like top 16 or something at the Showcase Challenge, and they were among, all the Rescaminator decks. Like half the decks in the top, or I think 5 out of the 8 were top 8 were Rescam, and they managed to do very well against Rescam. They said that they had basically played against Rescam like 10 matches total, and they'd never lost, which seemed like hyperbole to me. But, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, right? Or the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Like, they did do very well at a tournament that was dominated by Rescam. So here, again, I don't have to worry about Daze because Tormod's Crypt is a 0-drop. So look at my hand. I've got Ground Seal, which is double protection. Psychic Frog. Uh-oh. Here, I think the play is to go ahead and Ground Seal, yeah, and then hold up Veil and just take the hit. Oh, but Dismember. So we have an option. If we Dismember here, they can just dump their hand. I don't think Dismember's the play here. Because, like, yeah, you got them to discard their whole hand, but now they're going to be hitting you for 5 each turn instead. I think it's better to just wait. All right, they come in. We just let it happen. They're pondering. Harbinger of the Seas. Oh no, we're totally dead to this, right? Right? Well, we have this Dismember. The little Dismember that could. And they don't have a force. My goodness, what luck. Okay, now we can stick our Carpet. And we can go ahead and ping them with this just to make good use of mana. Normally, I don't like to play Bowmasters first. Let he who is without sin cast the first Bowmasters, as I like to say. But seriously, like, I need to apply some pressure. I need a blocker. This orc token will block or force my opponent to jump their frog. So I'm like, cool, whatever. And sure enough, they do jump their frog. They dump a bunch of stuff onto it, and then they swing. Now at this point, I could definitely like pop the Crypt just to force them to fight on the ground next turn. And here, this was a little dicey because if their last card was Bowmasters, I would have been in trouble. But boom, I find the push, and I actually have a borrower as well. So I swing in, and then I can just push the frog, and that's basically game. Like, they dump so many resources into that. And so I can just bounce the Grief here, and then I got my borrower in exile ready to swing. Boom, took down Rescam. Feeling very good about this. Like, and it's not like I took down, like, I took down Rescam a few times with, like, Nadu Breakfast and decks like that are, like, fundamentally unfair. Maybe with, like, Stifle Knot and decks like that just are very powerful and destroy decks that don't pack removal. But to do it with a fair control deck feels amazing. It feels like everything fell into place, and I played really tightly there, really carefully. So now we go from that Rescam match, I think, into another Rescam match. Yeah. So Innistrad Revenue Service, we have some friendly banner here. And they tell me that they have like a fully folded out Death and Taxes deck. It says, love your username, terrifying. Because, you know, it's not only is it Innistrad, which is scary enough, but it's a revenue service. And then they said, thank you, big D&T guy. I'm like, oh, great, you're a D&T guy. This is going to be an actual fun match, right? Have it foiled out in a custom wooden humidor deck box on a shelf close by. Okay, so again, I don't fault Spikes for doing what Spikes do and playing the best deck. I just think it's uninteresting, and like I have zero desire to ever pick up. Like, I did play some Scam early on because it was a cool deck. It was like a good alternative, and it was unfavored against Delver. And then once they made the innovation of sticking in Tombs and Animate Deads in there, I just I was like, nah, I don't really want to be playing an AB combo deck. Yeah, and then it became completely dominant, and now it's my nemesis. Again, I won't bitch about Scam the entire time. I've got a really good hand here, though. And it has interaction, like even if they are able to return something bad. So, okay, Douthie, not the end of the world. I don't even really use my graveyard that much other than for Uro. So Douthie swings in. I'm at 17 life. Not really in danger here. I definitely consider going ahead and bouncing, but I decide, I'll just bounce later. I'm going to brainstorm first because I have the ability to bounce if they Bowmasters, and I have double Daze. So I feel safe to brainstorm. Unfortunately, I don't find anything good. And, yeah, so I fetch into the void. Fetch into the void, like, I don't know what else to do, and I bounce that, but they can just recast it. So it's just a temporary thing. I've got nothing in my graveyard, but this Uro does give me some life, and I don't get to put a land in. I definitely consider wasting here because they're on one land. I think wasting Rescam is almost always a trap, but this does cut them off recasting their Douthie for a turn if they don't have a land, but they have Entomb. Oh, no. What are they going to do with their big scary Atraxa? Are they going to get it into play? They reanimate. I Daze, and so double Daze save the day. But look at my lands. Like, I've got one land in play now, and any reanimation spell off the top, and I'm dead. So I would cast a Psychic Frog, and I'm fully ready to just dump my entire hand and fully commit to this. But I go ahead and let the Grief resolve. But then they have and then the Atraxa gets some Wasteland. I think they also got like an Archon, a reanimation spell, and like everything, the nuts, because Atraxa looks at 10 cards. Let's see how many cards they got on this Atraxa, just out of morbid curiosity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Draw 5, and then it's Death Touch. And the real slap in the face is it's every color except red, so your Blue Blast doesn't do anything against it. So frustrating. All right, so I board in, and I'm like, all right, we're going to do our best here. And, okay. So we have some more discussion about, like, I've got like 57, 58% win rate with the deck, and I suck at it. That's the mark of, like, when your opponent is making, like, and not this opponent. This opponent's doing fine. But I often will play against Rescam players who just fundamentally don't know what they're doing and just like, throw away, like brainstorm turn one and those kinds of plays and stuff. And you're just kind of like, man, like I'm great. Like this is kind of a buy around, and then they just get you with Atraxa, right? So we'll see what happens here. But you can see like Innistrad Revenue Service telling me about a 5K that was canceled because this deck still exists. Lol. Yeah. Some legacy current events. Hopefully you're watching this long in the future when grief is just a memory. Okay, so this is a great hand. It's got protection. It's got an Uro, which doesn't really matter until later. But, I'll take it. It's a blue card. I can pitch to force. And I'm cantripping. I've got my mana under me. I'm feeling good. I don't have any graveyard interaction. But then, boom, I draw a Tormod's Crypt. Tormod's Crypt, they force it. Okay. I don't have the tools to fight over force. I could have brainstormed there. I decided not to. And I held my brainstorm for this situation. I'm like, what do I put back here? I think I put back both the brainstorms. And then force them to take the Daze. Yeah, I decided not to put back the brainstorm for some reason. Okay. Now they reanimate grief and they take my brainstorm. So I think that was a misplay. I definitely like looking at it right there. It makes sense to just put back the brainstorms and make them take your Daze that doesn't do anything at this point of the game, or your Uro. But instead, they were able to strip, and I've got this Daze that doesn't do anything. It's like a terrible card at this point. They don't know about it though, so maybe I was thinking like, okay, if they have Animate Dead, now I've got Daze. It paid off right there, but now I've got like a bunch of nothing in my hand. But luckily, guess who's coming back? Uro, and they don't Daze it, and I even have Tamiyo. So, Psychic Frog is great, but Psychic Frog is no match for Uro, in my humble opinion. And I can swing in, and I can also remove the Psychic Frog. They have one card in hand, and I even have a Daze to protect it. So I think the play is go ahead and attack in, and then remove the Psychic Frog now before they are able to draw a blue card for force. And it's not advancing. Is the game over? I think the game might be over. Okay, no. Yeah, but I get rid of it, and at this point, like, it's a foregone conclusion I'm going to win. Yeah, this doesn't matter. And, it's a 5/5, basically, because of the Animate Dead. I'm not even sure what they could have not blocked there and gotten a 1. That might have been a better play. I don't know. But I'm at 30 life. So, yeah, again, Uro closes against non-white decks. It's a great closer. Against white decks, of course, they've got exile-based removal, or is a lot less reliable. All right. This hand, I think, is amazing. Why? Because it has lots of mana, it has a ground seal, and it has a dismember, which can take care of an early reanimated troll. It is not amazing that I'm on the draw and that they could just grief scam me into oblivion. I have almost nothing in hand. But I like the fact that it has mana. So they open Wasteland, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to open Fetch, and then we'll see what they do. Okay, so when a Rescam player keeps a Wasteland open her hand, that means they almost certainly have Troll, and sometimes you can get them if you have like a Stifle, but unfortunately I didn't have Stifle here. All right, so we're playing out our own cards, and I'm just slow rolling the ground seal because I don't want it to get destroyed, and that might be a mistake. We'll see what happens here. They ponder. Nothing. Okay, good. So I'm glad I held the ground seal. I'm vindicated in that, but what are they doing here? Oh, Bowmasters. Well, that's not good. Now, at this point, I could definitely Veil just to prevent the pings, but I want to wait until this to see whether this comes in, because I didn't want them to Daze the ground seal on the stack. So I get to draw a card here. And, yeah, I definitely consider just Veiling there. It does grow their army, though, and I can hold the Veil for later. Psychic Frog, that's tough. And they have enough cards in hand that they can keep Psychic Frog alive. So even though I have a lot of land, you're going to see this Wasteland is probably going to clip one of my lands. And it's the pressure's on. I'm being squeezed, right? Like, I have all these lands in hand, but I just don't have time to deploy them. And they're Wastelands because they don't really need to use lands anymore. They just need to beat me down. Yeah. Let's see. Why is it not advancing? Come on, replay. Okay. So I do Veil here, and I get some value, and I'm able to kill the frog, which is great. But they're coming in, and they're hitting me hard, and I don't really have a lot of gameplay here because Douthie is just going to eat. And Douthie was the secret trump card that they pulled out here. Sorry, I don't like using that expression. Douthie was the ace in the hole that they had here, and it just completely kept me off balance. So even though I do have like force, like this Veil is not going to do anything in this game. I pitched another card into, and I even Veil to try to draw a card, and then I realized, oh, they didn't actually even cast a black card, so I don't get to draw off of it. Yeah, it's just kind of a disaster there, brought to us by Douthie, and all they did was tap out and put threats into play. That's their plan B. It doesn't matter if you have a ground seal in play. They have plenty of independently powerful creatures. So my record against Rescam is no longer impeccable like Squiddward's is, and I'm pretty down. But let's go into game 4 here, or match 4 of the league. Match 5. This is the final match of the league. So I've lost 2 here, and learning the deck. Let's see if I can salvage the positive record. So Tamiyo comes in. I'm happy to be wasted here because Tamiyo is going to generate value. That's what she does. She goes to work finding clues. And then my opponent is not really doing anything, and I'm able to continue to amass clues. So I think they just didn't. They had a turn off where they didn't have land. Okay. I just remember what matchup this is. This is an amazing match. I think you're going to love it. Okay. So here we go. Brainstorm. Fire and Ice. So what I did there is I brainstormed with Fire and Ice on the stack to tap her down, and because she flipped while the ice was still on the stack, the ice fizzled, and my opponent, they didn't get to draw a card. Sucker number 1. They didn't get to draw a card. So now I've got a Tamiyo, and I go ahead and plus her, and like they basically just went down a card unnecessarily. Great. Tamiyo's ability to just flip in response to a brainstorm is so powerful. Okay, so they come in here, crashing footballs. So I force, they force. Unfortunately, I don't have blue up, so I can't use the Spell Pierce. Real bummer. So I'm not going to fire off Wasteland here, I don't think. I think it makes more sense to just be patient. They swing in at Tamiyo, but she debuffs them. She gives all of them -1, -0, which, again, seems like a totally trivial Planeswalker ability, but it does help protect her. It helps her stay alive, right? So I can push one of these, and they're not having it, and I'm like, cool. But I've got the Spell Pierce here, and so we clear one of those, and let's see. This one's attacking Tamiyo. They're both attacking Tamiyo, so she's going to go down for loyalty, but she can climb back up, right? She can dust herself off and keep going up. And that's one of the recurring themes you're going to see in these series of matches is just that Tamiyo is a survivor. She's a fighter. All right, now they're going to try to come in again, and I think it makes sense to just Bowmasters that, block, and now I can Fatal Push that as well. And they're like, no, you're not pushing that. All right, I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I'll just trade with this guy, this Shardless agent. Tamiyo's still alive. She still has 1 loyalty. And now I've drawn Dismember, which is another way to remove this token if I absolutely need to. I go ahead and I think I made a mistake earlier by not wasting, and that's how they were able to hardcast the Force Negation. So I go ahead and take it out after the fact, kind of close the proverbial barn door after the horses have escaped. Okay, and they bounce my Tamiyo. She's demoted from being a planeswalker to just being a student again. But don't worry, she's going to learn very quickly. So I go ahead and play her out, and I'm not attacking into Bowmasters because they, just out of respect for Violent Outburst and cards like that. Bowmasters does have some utility, like they do play Lorien Revealed. So I think it's cool to just be patient. So they're attacking with Brazen Borrower, and I have a Psychic Frog, which is a great card. Let's see if it sticks. And I am generating value off of Tamiyo. All right. They have 3 cards in hand. They only have 2 lands. And Do they scoop it up? What's going on here? I think I am winning here. They're still playing. It just stopped working. Come on, replayer. Okay, stop. Okay, so the violent outburst, they get crashing footballs. By the way, I don't think this deck is viable anymore just because of Vexing Bubble. Vexing Bubble completely nerfs this deck. So here we go. I fetch. Yeah, like Tami is still alive. She's still doing her work. Witherbloom command takes out one of their creatures. It also recurs. I think I just grab, what do I grab? A Bayou? Yeah, that makes sense. At this point, I'm more concerned with just having access to colors. They do play Wasteland, and I can, in theory, get wasted off a color. Psychic Frog number 2. This game is over. There's no way they're coming back from all that. So they concede shortly afterward. Let's go to game 2. All right. So we're on the draw here. Let's take a look. I haven't been showing my sideboard. I don't actually board that much. In this match, I think I brought in my Force Negations. And I took out my Bowmasters, which really don't do much. Took out Witherbloom command. There's like nothing that costs less than 2 mana in their deck to target with it. And I took out a Wasteland because they've got a lot of basics. So if I recall correctly, this is a very short game. You'll see why. So, yeah, Magus of the Moon. Immediate scoop on my part. Now, I did have outs, and I thought about this afterward. I was like, well, what if my top card was Dismember? So this is one of those things where I was low on clock. See, I have 10 minutes on my clock, and they have 16 minutes, and I could play it out and maybe recover, but I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to scoop here and not try to draw my 2 outer. Or technically I could draw a basic island and then draw my 1 Hydroblast. But it's just like, I may not have time for game 3 if I do that. And you'll see how close we get on game 3. This is one for the ages. One of the most exciting games I've played in so long. Check this out. I definitely leave a comment if you're like, whoa, that was amazing. By the way, the reason I'm suggesting making comments, I don't really care that much about engagement, but it does boost the YouTube algorithm. So I'm not going to shamelessly constantly say, leave a comment, subscribe. I don't want you to think I'm desperate for likes. This is just a hobby for me. I have no illusions of becoming some professional YouTube creator. Okay, so Tamiyo, perfect turn 1 play. Again, this is 1 is a lot less than 2. Beanstalk is 2 mana. Tamiyo, 1 mana. Big difference, right? And you're going to see just how powerful, how many cards she draws this game. So I'm just I think game 1, they waste me, and I'm just swinging in and creating these clues. And I really need lands here, but I decided to waste them. I think that might have been a mistake. So what just happened there? What did I force? Oh, why did my Force Will off of Undercity Sewers. I was like, I don't want to go down in cards at this point. I'm not sure. I think I even said to myself, I'm going to throw anything that's not a land into the bin because I really need land here. Because I can't crack my clues if I don't have a land. So I'm sitting here and I'm feeling pretty dead. I can Stifle here, which is one reason to hold up cards. I think it is correct to brainstorm here just to potentially find a land. Yes, I could get brainstorm locked, but I got to try. I've already missed 2 land drops. Endurance comes in. I'm like, Endurance? Sure. I don't think there's anything wrong with Endurance. I can definitely come back from that. So Endurance targets my graveyard. Endurance just isn't the card that it used to be. Okay, and check this out. This is one of those situations where I didn't even think about this, but wait a second. I can just brainstorm here. I was going to use this brainstorm anyway, but I'll just use it now when they're blocking. I already got my clue. Look at all those clues. More clues up in here than Sherlock Holmes. All right, flipped her. Now the block is moot. She doesn't die in combat anymore because she's a planeswalker. And my brainstorm did yield a couple tasty lands here. I was able to put back some chaff. So I played my land out. I got Stifle up. And check this out. I'm going to Stifle the Suspend trigger. They Mystical Dispute it, but I did get the Mystical Dispute out of their hand. So now Crashing Footfalls, we got a lot of pressure on Tamiyo. She did reduce the attack power of that to 2. So Endurance only hit her for 2 instead of 3. Wait, did they attack me? Yeah, I think they attacked me directly. So they're just going to ignore her, which you'll see what happens, how well that works out for them. All right, spoiler. All right, so Psychic Frog. All right, and now I can make Psychic Frog very large, and I can throw Psychic Frog in front of one of these rhinos. And I opt to do that. I pitch an Uro. I pitch another Uro. Pitch a Ponder. And I decide to not pitch the other Psychic Frog in the Dismember. But I did successfully kill this. Oh, no. So that's pretty good. Like, I just dumped my hand, and like I had no recourse when they bounced. Again, Psychic Frog giveth and taketh. And there it took quite a bit. Now, granted, like those Uros were probably just as good in my graveyard as they were in play. So, look at Tamiyo's loyalty, 8. All right, I'm going to play out a Psychic Frog. I do not think I'm likely to win this game. I haven't had any mana to crack these clues. I've just been sitting here on the defensive ever since they suspended. And here they go. Boom. Minsk and boo. My goodness. Flash from the past. 2022 wants their, what is that expression? They want their Radio Shack back or something. Okay, so we pushed that token. So nullified that ability. They were going to definitely kill me there. Now they're going to attack. I have no choice. I'm going to pitch my entire hand here just to bounce one of these off. I can't actually even kill it. But check this out. They may not have realized, but you may see something. How much do you need to do the ultimate on Tamiyo? So I'm dead on board. Like, I'm super duper dead. There's no way in hell that I should win this game. But Tamiyo is about to -7 draw cards equal to half the number of cards in your library rounded up. You get an emblem with you have no maximum hand size. Okay, so she's just patiently been here, learning, helping defend the fort a little bit by casting these tiny little enchantments that like reduce the attack power of enemies. I mean, she's kept me alive. I would totally be dead. I probably would have taken like another 8 damage or something if she hadn't been doing her magic every turn. So here we go. We're going to draw cards. Look at how little time I have on my clock, by the way. I'm so glad that I scooped that game 2 instead of trying to play to my unlikely outs. So here we go. What is it like to draw? We're drawing 22 cards. Feels pretty good. I'll be candid. I wasn't sure how long it was going to take me to click through this. I've got to discard. So this is a 3-drop. They have no blockers back, right? So I have to discard 15 cards for lethal, and I've got 2 minutes to click through the interface, and it takes a while. But you'll note that I do I have force backup? I have a lot of dazes. Yeah, I have double force backup, right. So basically the game's done. It's just a question of, okay, can I click discard fast enough? And if my opponent wants to, my opponent is totally within their right to just sit there and like make me click it, but they do scoop. I think I probably would have had time to click. You have to do like 2 or 3 clicks for each one. So it does take time. And also there's like lag and stuff. My internet connection is not the best. So yeah, definitely Tamiyo. What would Beanstalk have done in that situation? It would have maybe drawn me a couple cards. Tamiyo, which is 1 mana instead of 2, I might remind you, created a whole bunch of clues that I didn't even have to use, and she held down the fort, dramatically reducing damage, and she helped me draw 22 cards, which I could immediately discard to my frog. I'm sorry, Tamiyo is an insane magic card, and I am going to 100% when I get to Japan, I'm going to go shop around because they're a lot more expensive in Japan than they are in the U.S. I don't have the luxury of importing them from the U.S. I have to go shopping from store to store trying to find them for less than 120. It's like 12,000 yen or something like that. It's like $120. But then, the yen's really weak against the dollar. Anyway, I won't go on like a big digression about foreign currency exchange rates, but like, she is absolutely worth picking up. If you haven't picked her up on MTGO, you should pick her up and take her for a spin. All right, let's go to the next 5 games. All right. So I finished that league and I felt really good. I was like, even the ones that I lost a Rescam, and I lost what was it? Oh, I lost a Harmony Woods, and their fair bug deck. So I like those are reasonable losses in my opinion. Like it's not like I just got completely blown out. Of course, I did make that really big misplay by not forcing the Bowmasters against Harmony Woods. So game one, this person, I'm gonna assume it's a she by the name. She doesn't have any MTGO info, so I'm like, okay, she could be on anything. But I keep this hand. I unfortunately have to mold the 5 because of lands. And even then, I didn't get a land. So, Painter. All right, Painter. Think about nightmare matchups for a deck where all your threats are basically blue. Painter plays somewhere between 6 and 8 red blasts. And in my opinion, they should probably be playing 8 red blasts right now because of the preponderance of frogs hopping around everywhere. So I come in and I'm just doing normal stuff that I do against Painter. Wasting the Urza Saga, which you should almost always do. And by the way, if I hadn't wasted it, it would have ticked up and eventually gotten the grindstone that could have grinded me out. Fable, this is a must force. Now, because they are a deck that can just drop lots of scary permanents into play, I do think it's kind of okay to just hold back the Borrower instead of the Brainstorm, because Brainstorm, well, let me look at some more cards. But the Borrower can basically save my life. So let's see if I pitch Borrower or Brainstorm here. I think I Brainstorm first. Okay. And then Daze is a pretty good pitch. An alternative, of course, is to just pitching Force and hold the Daze, but I don't think that's right. So I have a lot of blue cards on top. I'm going to force pitch Daze. All right. Wait. I just Daze it. I'm sorry. Yeah, because they were tapped out, so I Daze. I didn't need to force. Okay. So that is great. You always want to stop Fable of the Mirror Breaker. It's kind of how they break parity in their deck. They don't have like card advantage cards really. Second one, I just force. And again, I do keep the Borrower around because it's got a lot of value in this matchup. And unfortunately, I just had to chill. I could definitely blow the Borrower, and I do, just to try to stop that Cauldron, which is a very powerful card. All right, my son popped in. Anyway, I just... what happened here? Yeah, she wins. I scoop. I think I know that this Earl is not going to get me where I need to go. Game 2. Hey, kids, I'm recording. Please do not bother me. Please respect my space. All right. Quinnen, I'm recording. Please respect my space. Okay. So here we go. This is a great hand. Deed is strong. I have a Hydroblast, my only Hydroblast. I feel naked without 3 Hydroblasts on the board. My goodness. But Frog pulls some serious weight against red decks or against Moon Stompy, which is where you really need the Hydroblasts. So yeah, I got my 1 Hydroblast. I've got a Bowmaster, which can help if they do bust out the early Fables. So I get my Surveil land, Surveil a Force in the yard. I'm able to blast Engineer. You always counter Engineer. That's one thing that I've learned the hard way is if you can counter an Engineer, you always counter it. They are going to put something really nasty in the graveyard, and it's going to come back to haunt you at 3 or 4 turns from then. Drew Collector Oof, another great hammer in the matchup. I just throw Psychic Frog in the graveyard. I've already got one. It's not even that great in this matchup because of all the Pyroblasts. And here we go, Deed. And I decided to cash in Deed for 3 permanents there. That might have been a mistake. I'm definitely, but I want to be mana efficient here. I don't want to be blowing up my own Tamiyo. I don't want to be blowing up my own Collector Roof. I'm like, this is a good, clean opportunity to take out 2 of their lands, take out their Goblin token, and yeah. And I think that was a defensible decision. You know, other people might not have played that way. Now, normally this Magus would be scary, but I've got Dismember. So I just Dismember and go about my merry way. Tamiyo on the table. She gets blasted. Again, I'm happy for her to get destroyed because she cost me 1 mana to deploy. Normally, you're getting your Uros destroyed or your Frogs destroyed or other cards that you put a lot of mana into destroyed by a pyroblast. But Tamiyo eating a bolt, eating a plow, eating anything, it's a 1 mana for 1 mana tempo neutral exchange. So Painter Servant, I've just been like pretty fearless around Painter Servant. Like it just feels like it's so rare that I actually get killed by Grindstone itself. Okay, so I've got Collector Oof in play, and that really does kind of lock down their ability to kill you with Grindstone. They have to blast the Oof, and then they have to play it. Okay, so here they opt to draw, and I'm able to buff my Orcish Bowmaster. So Fable, you don't have to discard cards to draw, but she decided to do that, and I don't know what was in her hand. It looks like she discarded a Goblin Welder, which makes sense. I mean, it's not going to do a lot at this point. But she did speed up my clock. I play my Frog. Again, I have zero expectation the Frog's going to stick. Engineer, I can't counter it this time. Let's see what they get. I think that it's a mistake to get Chaos Defiler. They have no way to put this into play because they need Welder. Engineer can't put Defiler into play, and it's possible that she didn't realize that. Otherwise, why would you get Chaos Defiler here? You should absolutely get Phyrexian Dragon Engine, which you can either put into play with Goblin Engineer, or you can just unearth it and draw 3 cards. So I think that she made a misplay there. Okay, so I go for the Throat. This thing, you always have to kill that Kiki G thing. This is one of the reasons why I will always force a Fable if I can. Because not only do they get the token, not only do they get the card filtering, but that the reflection itself can just totally end games. And cloning Goblin Engineer is a total nightmare if they're able to do that. So I had to remove her very quickly. So I'm coming in. Again, I'm not buffing unless they block, and they don't block. So I've got another Brazen Borrower on deck. All right, it makes sense to take out that token, but right now I'm just going to attempt to pressure them. Let's see. Do I remove the token? I think it makes sense to remove the token here. The Engineer's not doing anything. Instead, I bring back Uro. Uro draws some cards. And I'm swinging in for a lot of damage. I knew that they could block that. I didn't have a plan to get rid of it. It would have been nice if I had a Bowmaster, so I was already tapped out. Their turn. Are they going to forget and use the ability? Sometimes people do. They do. And I'm not sure if they forget or if they just are desperate and they need to see. They're probably desperate given the board state. Let's be charitable. But yeah, I'm able to ping down their Engineer and end the game. Game 3. All right. So here we are in game 3. This is a hand. My goodness. Okay. Witherbloom Command. Absolute house in the matchup. Bowmasters, you wouldn't think it would be that great against a non-blue deck, but it's quite good against Painter in my opinion. And then double Cantrip Suite, Dismember. This hand has it all. So they start with Welder, and if I have time, I can just kill it with Bowmaster, but I decide, I decide I'm going to try to kill it with Bowmaster. Usually it takes Welder a turn or two before I can really go off the chain. Here they come in for damage, which is always a good sign. Note that I am not playing Tamiyo. Even though I could have played her, I'm just I want to find land. I want to keep forward momentum. She's not that great in this matchup. Again, she's mostly just a removal lightning rod. Also note that MTGO is really sluggish right now. I'm going to restart in just a moment before I go into the next game. So here we go. Wasting their Ancient Tomb. Good use of Wasteland. Choke off their options. And I'm able to... So whenever you're up against a Fable of the Mirror Breaker, it's about to go to Chapter 2, you want to wait until their turn before they discard. Flash in the Bowmasters. You can't get them. It's all part of the same thing. So they decide whether they want to discard, and then they discard. It's all... You can't interact with that once they've made the decision. But what I do is I always ping the Goblin Shaman token. That way, if they choose to attack so they can get a token, I can chomp here, or just profitably block and kill the Shaman token. So that's one of the reasons I said Orcish Bowmasters is surprisingly good against Painter, because it's really strong against Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So they're not going to really be able to get the full value out of this Fable. And they opt not to discard here, which is probably correct. They don't want to lose their token, and they're not going to attack either. But they do play out a Painter Servant, so I have to be cognizant of their Painter plan. And they do Pyroblast, and I think that was a bad Pyroblast. Like, Pyroblasting my Orchestra Bowmasters now, if that was in their hand, they should have just Pyroblasted it at the beginning of the turn. But really, they shouldn't Pyroblast a Bowmaster. I've got so many more powerful cards on my deck. The Bowmasters has already delivered value by pinging down the Welder, right? There's no real reason to get rid of it unless you have another Fable. And maybe she has another Fable in hand. Okay, so I'm able to bounce here, attack in. And now they're going to Chapter 3. Tamiyo comes down. Again, I'm just taking it slow. I don't want to blow my Dismember. I'm going to wait until I have like a clear reason to Dismember. And we're drawing cards. Yeah, and Tamiyo's starting to tick up, which is great. Another Welder comes down. And I decide to Dismember the Welder with the Reflection trigger on the stack, so they can pay mana, they can target it, and they can create a copy of it. But you can react, you can respond by removing the target, and then that fizzles the effect. So they would have gotten a second Welder, but I prevented that. I'm not sure what a second Welder would have done there, but yeah, actually, I'm not sure. Oh, yeah. The second Welder could have welded the Painter Servant in, it could have welded Disruptor Flute in, because it would have had haste. So here we go. Second Tamiyo. So this is kind of cool, but you have to be careful not to flip your second Tamiyo. You can have a creature Tamiyo and you can have a Planeswalker Tamiyo, but you can't have two of them, of either of them, because they're legendary. All right, so my opponent is passing without play. They're down to one card, and I feel like I've turned the corner on this game. Tamiyo is going to continue to tick up here. Ground Seal is good because they do use their graveyard a little bit. Mainly, I just want to beat them down before they find a way to dig out of it. Phyrexian Dragon Engine, Fury would be really bad. They cast a Blood Moon here, but I don't actually care that much about it because I've already got so much power on board that I can just win. And I do hang on to the Dismember. That's the one card I don't pitch here because I can still cast it. But, I mean, like, when you already have a commanding board presence, you don't really need to worry about... and another thing is if I drew my island, I could use Tamiyo's ability to return... actually, I don't have the Hydroblast in here. But, I almost never use it, but you can actually minus her to regrow a sorcery. So I'll be right back. I'm just going to restart my client. Round 2 of the second league. So I'm 1-0 at this point. And I know who this person, Warlock of the Coast, is because I played them the day before. So this hand is quite good against Moon Stompy, which is what they're on, because I have Force and a card to pitch, and I have a Ponder to find follow-up action, and I have Psychic Frog, which is just amazing in this matchup. Moon Stompy is one of those irresponsible decks that just doesn't respect permanence, and it doesn't really play any sort of removal whatsoever. So we are able to... Oh, and better yet, like the best land to have against them, the basic island. So I'm going to have blue-black here. And I do force the Blood Moon anyway because I need to be able to get black mana to cast my Psychic Frog. But I just play the Psychic Frog. There's not a lot they can do about it. They have Unlicensed Hearst. I am able to double Daze the Broadside Bombardiers. My reasoning is that, yes, I could just wait around and like potentially make my Psychic Frog larger. But Broadside is one of the few cards that has the ability to close the game really quickly. So I'm like, great, I got their Broadside out of the way. I'm attacking with the 6/7. I'm drawing a card. And they're on a 2-turn clock. They play this Rabble Master, which is kind of concerning, but it's not going to do that much damage. They do crew the Hearst, though. So they're able to do 5 damage instead of just 1 damage, which is substantial. I'm down to 14. But look at this clock. My goodness. And I was kind of worried when I was pitching all this stuff. Like, maybe they have some kind of like crazy out to this. Like, they're dead on board. Very dead on board, and I can make my frog fly. What could they possibly do? And they think for a very long time with this Broadside Bombardiers, and then I realized I count twice. I miscount. I'm like, oh, if they throw the hearse, it's not enough. But then I was, oh no, they can actually throw the Rabble Master and kill me for Xaxes. So I lost. Crushing defeat considering pre-boarding. They have literally no answer to Psychic Frog. I think I was just too aggressive. I totally will own that. I should have played out some lands, taken it slow, and I would have had a blue card to go with this force. I would have had a lot of other things going on, and I would have been able to potentially stop the Broadside Bombardier Menace. So game 2, I'm a little bit more sanguine, having gotten, completely destroyed. I mean, if you call dying for Xaxes with lethal on the table completely destroyed, this is not a hand that you should keep, in my opinion. It just doesn't do enough. And yet, my faith in Psychic Frog is so strong that I keep it. Okay. So, Psychic Frog is either going to be pitched to a force if some must counter spell, basically Blood Moon, comes up. So, I do find another blue card. It's a really good one, Brazen Borrower, which I can pitch if necessary. So I just have to fade this Disruptor Flute. Hopefully they don't name Psychic Frog here. If they name Psychic Frog, I'm not going to be able to use Psychic Frog. And they name Psychic Frog. So I do have Brazen Borrower, but Disruptor Flute has Flash. So I would need to find them in a situation where end of turn they were tapped out and I could bounce and then also. And then they play another Disruptor Flute. What are they going to name here? Force of Will? I'm not sure. Wasteland? Wasteland's probably the name. But they name Petty Theft, which is a mistake because I can bring in the Brazen Borrower and beat them with it, even without doing the actual Petty Theft part of the spell. And that is what I'm going to proceed to do here. I cannot cast my Psychic Frog, so it's going to stay in hand as force bait. And I definitely think I could have played out the Brazen Borrower, but I'm like, they're drawing so slowly. I didn't even necessarily need to counter this Trinisphere, but I'm kind of nervous because I've got double force in hand. I'm like, yeah, let's stop the Trinisphere. So it was just a clean Daze. So Magus needs to be stopped. I don't have a clean out to it, especially not like I can't, Petty Theft even. So I couldn't flip blue and Petty Theft. So basically I had to stop Magus or else I wouldn't have necessarily drawn it out. Able to bring back Uro here. I'm going to swing in, make yet another clue token. It might be time to flip her, but for now I'm just enjoying drawing these. Gone is their removal spell. Basically they can pay 3 mana and bounce a card to their hand, or they can do 2 damage, but that's not going to stop my Uro. And I do opt to force the Gone just because I know that like the longer this Uro stays on the table, the more inevitability I have. I had a Witherbloom, which was a great top deck. I was in a very strong position. Game 3. All right. This is another totally keepable hand. Wasteland to punish their greedy keeps. Force of Will to stop their turn 1 Blood Moon. Hedge Maze to do a little bit of selection later. And importantly, a Fatal Push to remove Bombardiers or Rabble Masters. Those being like the key things that I want to stop. Okay. So they're coming in with, what are they doing for 2 mana? Blood Magus of the Moon. Okay. This is why you always mulligan to Force of Will or Force of Negation or both when you're up against Moon Stompy. You just never keep a hand that doesn't have a force effect. But preferably Force of Will because Force of Negation would not have stopped this. Thankfully, I can pitch my Frog. I'm sad because I wanted to win with him. And hey, I drew another Frog. But first I'm going to waste their Ancient Tomb because Ancient Tomb is a huge source of mana for them. Their deck is very greedy. And basically, they don't have anything that doesn't cost 3 mana except for apparently Disruptor Flute. And I think it was Unlicensed Hearse they used in game 1. So this is a great flip because I got a Force Negation. And I've got lots of Force Negation. I think there were 2 Force Negations in that Ponder. So I keep both of them. And I'm just going to play out my Hedge Maze here. Go ahead and get that ETB tap land. And I go ahead and keep that Witherbloom command on top because it can get my Wasteland back and it can take care of Disruptor Flute. This Rabble Master is kind of scary because I can't do anything about it right now. I actually, instead of getting a Wasteland here, which would have been great, I love wasting them, I went ahead and got a fetch so I could fetch and turn on Revolt for Fatal Push so I could get rid of the Rabble Master. You don't mess around with Rabble Master. It gets out of control very quickly. So now I have double Force Negation, and I just have to hope that they don't have Broadside Bombardiers. Okay, triple Force Negation. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to play out my Frog, and there's going to be one turn where I have to pitch Force Negation, but after that, I don't have to pitch it anymore. So they go ahead and block here just to deny me a draw, and it's their, like, I have hard castable Force Negations for Daze, and I'm able to hard cast on their one removal spell. I think they have 4 copies of it in their deck. Swing in, draw a card, do some damage. Hydroblast is another great draw, and I've got double Force Negation, and they pack it in. They don't even know how well I had this covered. They were just scared of the, they were just oppressed by the Frog there. So Frog is so strong in this matchup. Even game 1, where I lost, I mean, it was, I think Broadside Bombardier was the only top deck, and it was the 3 cards out of like 50 cards left in their deck they could have drawn. So even though I do feel like I could have played more carefully, I don't think it was completely reckless and beyond the pale to pitch my hand. Okay, so this player is, I'm not sure what they're on. They didn't have a history, but it turns out they are on a very powerful new deck. And I mean, it's an old deck, but it's been, like, if any deck benefited from Modern Horizons 3, it is 12 post. So they open Vexing Bauble. I'm very grateful that I'm playing a Spell Pierce here, because it is counter magic that can be cast without being countered by Vexing Bauble. And I opt to just play it very slowly. They're going to get 4 mana here, but they don't actually have any use for the 4 mana that I can see. You just want to get Planar Nexus off the table as quickly as possible. Otherwise, this card... So this is a really oldie. There's this archetype called Tron, and I think in Modern and maybe some other formats. But basically, it's like these 3 Urza's lands that together you can produce more mana. So the other 2 produce 2 each, and this one produces 3 each. 3 each if you have all 3 of them. But since this Planar Nexus has all non-basic land types, it is the other 2 types that are required if you have an Urza's Mine and an Urza's Power Plant. Well, technically they do, because they have Planar Nexus. So they can immediately just tap this for 3 mana. It's like a Mishra's Workshop. It's better than a Mishra's Workshop because you can use it for anything, right? So they tap it here. I'm not sure what they're going to do here. Disruptor Flute is a very powerful card, and it looks like, oh, they're Kozilek's commanding. Well, I can just Spell Pierce this. And they just wanted to essentially draw 2 cards and create 2 Eldrazi spawn tokens, which they can sacrifice for mana. So Kozilek's Command, pretty powerful card. I kind of underestimated it early on, but it's proven that it's a good card. Okay, Tamiyo's in. I wasted their Cloud Post, and yeah, it's fine. Kill Tamiyo. It's not a big deal in this matchup. So I'm pondering. I'm desperately trying to find land. I do find land. I go ahead and grab, and just denying the mana. I'm burning a Fatal Push on their 0/1 that they can sacrifice for mana. That's how much I respect this deck and its ability to just pull victory out of thin air. They do have 4 mana on the table. They have Karn. Karn's quite good. Fortunately, we have Bowmasters. They minus Karn, and they what did they get with Karn here? Did they get Liquid Metal Coating? Hang on real quick. Karn, the One Ring. Okay, scary. So Echoing Depths can be a copy of a land, so that's one of the cards that they were able to use to copy. Like, if a card is in your graveyard, Echoing Depths can copy it. ETBs is like Vesuva, but instead of looking at cards in play, it looks at cards in your graveyard, lands in your graveyard. So here, they're going minus again, and let's see what they get here with their Karn. Disruptor Flute. Okay. And now they have a Wasteland too, so they can waste me, which would actually be really bad. But because their deck is incredibly land greedy, they don't waste me, which means that I can Bowmasters in them. So they play Disruptor Flute, and I just Bowmaster now. I'm thinking they're probably going to name Wasteland, but I've already used 2 of my Wastelands. I'm not sure what they name here. They name Force of Will. Okay, so I don't know how good of a play this is. Spells with chosen mana name costs 3 more to cast. So I can still cast my Force. I just have to pitch a card and pay 3 mana to cast it. But it can shut off activated ability, so it's like a Pithing Needle. That's its primary usage, is Pithing Needle. But it's a very flexible card, and when you have tons of mana, why not have a card that like Disruptor Flute instead of a Pithing Needle or like a Sorcerer's Spyglass? So I did see a Force of Will on the top when I brainstormed there, and I was able to put it back. It's not going to do much here. I don't want to pay 3 mana for it. I'm going to get a Frog on, and I'm just going to start attacking here. They only have 2 mana on the table, which is a pretty embarrassing position for them to be in, considering their deck's entire Raison d'etre is producing mana. So I even just hardcast my Borrower, try to get some damage on. Drawing cards. My Froggy's pretty big, and I got lethal on the table, and they're nowhere near getting the critical mass of mana they need. So again, this is a matchup that Beans really struggled with before Frog got printed. Like I remember this was like pretty much a nightmare matchup for me because yeah, you have Wasteland, you have Witherbloom command, but every turn they're just playing these windmill, lands like Cloudpost, and it just scales very quickly. And next thing you know, they're Eye of Uganing for Emrakul, and you're dead. So just keeping the lands off the table, name of the game here. All right, I surveilled Tamiyo into the yard. She's not really that powerful in them. This is a new card. It's so good. I think it's the best Eldrazi ever printed. Basically, you can go get any land in your deck, and if you pay even more mana, which they don't have the mana to do, if you pay even more mana, you can exile one of your opponent's lands. So what you do is you exile your opponent's land. It could even be a basic land. You stone rain them, effectively. And then you go get your Wasteland, and you stone rain them again with your Wasteland. It's like a 2-for-1, like so powerful, just completely deleting your opponent's mana base. But luckily here they are on the offensive, and I think they used it to go get a Cloudpost. All right, so I am going to cast a Frog, and I'm just going to chill. Also note that both of those abilities cannot be countered. They're triggers that happen when you cast. So the Eldrazi's are terrifying because counter magic is not very good against them. You don't even really care about the Mycosynth or the Mycospawn body. You just want to stop the actual abilities, but you can't unless you have Stifle. So I'm able to waste them off their Cloudpost, which is a very powerful mana land. So here I swing in and I do pitch some cards to overpower the Mycospawn. I just want to get it out of the way so I can start drawing cards. And they threw it in there. Okay, and here they dismember, but I have enough cards. So, like, they just basically wasted a dismember. That's like, I think that was a bad play because, like, of course I'm going to keep it alive. It's a freaking Frog. It's drawing me a card every turn. It's a powerful beater. It's a powerful blocker. I can't imagine a world in which I'm not willing to pitch 2 cards to keep my Frog alive. Okay, and now we've got Force, and they're, like, really low on land, and the game is pretty much wrapped up here. And I just swing for, and next turn they're dead, and I've got Bowmasters back up. They've got effectively one mana in play, and they can also cast Eldrazi. But that was just complete domination from the control deck of the 12-post player. And I'm here for it, man, because I have lost so many games to 12 posts over time. Okay, now we're up against Tap Techie. Okay, so this is like, I'm 3-0 at this point, and there's a ratcheting effect. The farther you get into a league without losing, the more intense it gets. The stronger the opponents get, you start to run into trophy leaders more, and that's who I run like one of the top trophy leaders. I think he's got a lot of trophies for the finals or like the final round of the league. So they're playing Mono Red Initiative, which Initiative has fallen off a little bit, but it's pretty good against control decks. It's really good against lands and stuff like that, but it's an open question. Like, are we going to be able to win this? It's not a favorable matchup in my opinion. Bowmaster does make it a little easier. So here we go. Tape Decky. Good luck to you. And we're off. I have to mull twice because I just have no landers. And I need, because they're initiative, I'm like, okay, I want to keep some counter magic. So I keep Force of Will, I keep Wasteland, and I'm going to keep... I already put one of the cards back, but I think I keep Frog here. Maybe I keep Brainstorm. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So I keep Dismember. And they open, of course, with my least favorite card of all time, Cavern of Souls. I don't know if that's my least favorite card. Grief is probably my least favorite card at this point. But, yeah, like, I just think fundamentally, you know, a land that makes creatures uncounterable, it's frustrating. It's, like, really frustrating when you're trying to be like an honest control mage. And, you know, you have people that can completely ignore your conservative, thoughtful keep with land. And even though I have a Wasteland, they have a second one. Wasteland, one of the reasons control decks play Wasteland, and almost everybody plays Wasteland right now, is because of cards like Cavern of Souls. Like Cavern of Souls and Urza Saga, you can't control the game if you can't control the lands now. The lands are just so powerful, and they really break the matchups open. Okay, so here we go. I think we just get the Surveil out of the way. Witherbloom. I mean, I can Witherbloom back the Wasteland. I think this is pretty strong. I think I keep it on top. Taking a turn off to Witherbloom back a land might seem weird, but they are stuck on mana here. So I deploy the Frog first, just hoping that maybe they'll cast something out that I can kill. So this is obviously not red initiative. And spoiler alert, it's white initiative, which is another initiative variant. I think red-white is the most powerful. I didn't see red at all in this deck, I don't believe. Maybe later. But I'm able to come in and a Solitude. I have a Force for Solitude. So my Force does get used, even though there's a Cavern on the table. And they have Caldera in hand. That was what they fetched with. But I'm not worried about Caldera because I've got Dismember, which is a great answer to Caldera. So I get my Wasteland back, and I just immediately waste them. And let's just keep them low resources. They draw Ancient Tomb, which is not what I like to see, because that gives them so much mana. They're able to put Caldera in, and I'm just going to take a few hits from it. Like, this is one of those things I never would have taken hits from Caldera. It's so much damage back in the day, but I've kind of gradually come around to like being comfortable with like severe blood loss that you're getting from like, okay, let's take 6 here. And like, we totally could have done something about this. We could have totally dismembered, but we decided to instead wasteland them. Very counterintuitive play, but I stand beside it. And, I think the results speak for themselves here. I'm drawing cards. I'm keeping their mana within control. I'm able to Daze the White Orchid Phantom. Just because it's a blocker, I don't really mind too much if they make me go get my basic island out of the deck. But it's like, I can Daze it. It's a tempo negative play, I think, technically. Or I guess tempo positive. I don't know. Let's not get into how to define tempo. Okay, the White Orchid comes down again. This time I'm just going to let it happen. I'm going to float. I floated the wrong color here. I should have floated black, and you'll see why. Because now I can push, but I had to proactively play out the Bowmasters. If I floated black, I wouldn't have needed to play out the Bowmasters there. I don't think I get punished for it, but it's just like I'm not playing tight there. So little suboptimal play. All right. Game 2. All right. So here we go. This is a strong keep against their deck. It's got 2 removal spells. It's got Brazen Borrower. It's got Bowmasters in case they do take the initiative. Bowmasters is really one of the cards that has made control decks able to beat initiative. So sadly, I think this is kind of like a non-game. I think they just don't find mana here. And I'm able to develop my board, and they're not. Which, when you play a deck that doesn't have Brainstorm and doesn't have Ponder in it, that's a risky run. So, yeah, they just scoop. It's kind of disappointing. But, hey, I'll take it. I really want a trophy with this deck. So let's go into the final round to see if I can get that trophy. Up against James Kisao. Very strong player who's been doing very well playing Grixis Control, which is kind of a rogue deck. It's not like a top deck by any means. Unfortunately, I have to mull, and I think this hand is keepable because we have Tamiyo and we have Force. We don't want to keep 2 forces because this matchup, it's control on control, and you want your forces for combo. You probably do want some forces just in case they cast a Haymaker like Kolagon's Command or something, but in general, you don't want to be pitching half your hand of forces. So I put one of the forces back. my goal, stick Tamiyo, see if I can get a few draws in with her, and then get Spell Pierce online. And yeah, I think if there's ever a card so I've talked a lot about Tamiyo being a lightning rod, but here I think I actually do keep her in because she's all I've got going on. So I think they're able to bolt, and I think I just force it. Let's see. All right, so Volk, and I bolt the force. I pitched the Brazen Borrower. It's not particularly strong in this matchup. Almost all of James's creatures, they come in as ETB triggers, so he's already getting value out of it. I pierce that. That's all I can do. I'm just not drawing land. I mold the 5, and now I'm not seeing lands. At this point, I was like, well, I'm probably not going to get the trophy. It's just, you play really hard, you try really hard, and then there's variance in the game, and sometimes it comes back at the end of the game. So I crack a clue, nothing to do to save my Tamiyo. So they're coming in. All right, and Narset, and I basically just scoop it up after Narset. I know that I'm not going to win. Narset is really strong in control mirrors. It turns out, looking at James's deck list, he only had one Narset in the entire 75, but that was a big relief once I looked at the deck list. Saw that. Okay, game 2, and let's take a look real quick at how I sideboarded. So I took out one of my Force of Wills, and I took out the Dismembers. He doesn't have any big creatures in his deck. And again, like all the creatures are value creatures, like really creatures that I love, that I would love to play more if Bowmasters weren't so dominant. He does have Bowmasters, of course. He also has, let's see if we can find his list over here. So he has one Tamiyo, which I hope he goes up to 4 after he watches this video. 2 Baleful Strix, 4 Orcish Bowmasters, 3 Frogs, which, 3, sure. 4 seems great for me. The card's amazing. Snapcaster Mage, which I think is kind of past its prime, but, I love this card. I've got 4 of them. I love putting them into decks. I was playing with Snapcaster recently as a few months ago, but I just don't think it's strong enough anymore. And then his pet card, it's like an uncounterable Stifle, basically. Very powerful way to beat Doomsday decks and other decks that rely on some sort of winning Oracle trigger or something like that. And then 1 Narset, and then just a whole bunch of spells. Very cool kind of rogue deck. This deck has been around for decades at this point, but he's incorporated a lot of contemporary cards here. And he's an extremely good player, not just with this deck, but with Doomsday. So, I just figured when I got paired against him, I was like, all right, well, there goes the trophy. I didn't bring in Deed. I don't think it's necessary. I thought about bringing in Groundsteel. I actually bring that in game 3. And we'll see Groundsteel do some work. All right. So here we go. Spell Pierce is a very strong card. Tamiyo is also a strong card. It's worth dazing. Of course, it being the only Tamiyo in James's deck, I can breathe a sigh of relief. So I didn't want to daze there because it does set me back a land, but, you just have to roll with the punches, right? Okay, so I drew Stifle, which may or may not be useful. My playback is kind of not working here. All right, let's try again. Okay. Basics, don't want to see those. Carpet, one of my sideboard cards that does come in clutch in this matchup. All right, Tamiyo of my own. I bring out a Frog. They're clinging to dust a lot, which is one of the reasons why I decided to bring in... I figure they probably have 2 clings. They're able to use Pyroblast. One of the reasons to play red right now. Pyroblasting Frogs. You can do that all day. It's like so powerful. So I've established quite a board presence here. And I do have Hydroblast, but he has Force. All right, and let's see if I can get this to advance. So at this point, I just don't do any. I attack first, and I hold my carpet trigger. I can use the carpet mana to just crack the clue, so I can keep my lands up, which is great because I mean, this is a very interactive matchup. Baleful Strix is no problem. I'm confident that I'll eventually draw. Okay, so what I did there, he bolted. I had Brainstorm. I'm like, cool. You want to bolt my Tamiyo? I'm going to flip her. And I flipped her. Right? Like, it's just so powerful. And he did that in the upkeep, too. So, not only did I get my Brainstorm in, but I flipped my Tamiyo. And I almost think it's like a great asset that Tamiyo has to draw. You have to draw 3 cards in a turn to flip her because you usually don't want to flip her. You want to keep building up clues. I don't know. I mean, you could argue like it is powerful, like having this tick up over there. Oh, no. Go back to the application. All right. It's going to work. It's going to work. I'll just wait for the program to respond. Come on, MTGO. You can do it. No. Go back. I believe in you, MTGO. I believe in you. All right. I'm just going to give it a sec. Okay. It worked. All right. And he had a follow-up bolt. Or what happened? Yeah, sorry. It's like moving really fast. Okay, so we had a Bowmaster fight, kind of like in Zoolander when they have like the walk-off. It's like how I envision the Bowmasters interacting with one another. But my Bowmaster won because he was like latest to the party. All right, so Tamiyo is still ticking up, and the replay machine is not working correctly. Okay, I draw another Tamiyo. Tamiyo's at 7. Tamiyo ultimates, and the game is basically over. But I don't want to ultimate her because I know my opponent is playing Bowmasters, and I don't have a good answer to Bowmasters yet. So I'm just going to keep pumping her. Cling. He clings my Bowmasters, which doesn't matter, but he does gain some life off that. No, wait. He clinged a card, and my Bowmaster triggered. That's what happened. Okay. So now he has successfully bounced Tamiyo to my hand to stop the impending ultimate apocalypse. So here, I'm just going to start attacking back in. There we go. Hitting them. Fatal Push on Bowmasters. I'm not able to interact with that. I'm able to use my carpet mana here for Uro. And then because he has Cling to Dust, I stifle the Uro to keep it from going to the graveyard and immediately getting a full-powered Uro into play. So here we go. They're brainstorming. And they don't see anything, so they scoop. So Uro is very powerful. All right, final game. All right, and at this point, James and I have some quick banter. These are some exciting games. And he said, haha, the first one wasn't very fair to you, but yeah, the last one was great. So he's in good spirits, even though I won game 2. And we're both hoping for an interesting game, even though this is for the trophy. Like, if he wins, he gets the trophy. If I win, I get the trophy. But we're still super chill. We're both playing to get better. This guy wants to be the very best. Like, he's like Ash Ketchum, right? Okay, so Ponder. And the client is taking a moment. So this is an incredible keep because I've got Carpet and I've got Ground Seal, which just can incidentally lock out his Snapcasters and his Cling to Dust while also cantripping me. And every card I draw in this matchup is important. Like, he's playing a very value-oriented deck, and so am I. So I'm able to waste. Bowmaster comes in. We fight over it. He has a Pyroblast for my Force of Will on his Bowmaster, so his Bowmaster does resolve. It does ping me, and it pings me again when Uro resolves. And I hide the fact that I have a Wasteland. I think I choose not to play it out just because I want to see if I can get him to play a non-basic. And I have Witherbloom, which is quite good at killing Bowmasters. So Shielder's Edict takes out my Tamiyo, unfortunately, but I'm going to go ahead and Witherbloom away his Orcish Bowmasters, and I get back a Wasteland. So I've got 2 Wastelands in my hand, and I'm going to go Surveil here. So I am feeling pretty ahead. He Thought Seizes and takes 2 damage and looks at my 2 Wastelands isn't able to take a card out of my hand, so that's a blessing. All right. I go ahead and bring back Uro. Draw my card, play my land. And keep in mind, Ground Seal is protecting Uro. He can't kill Uro with Clean to Dust or any of the cards you would normally use to get rid of it if he's playing Surgical. And Sink into Stupor, great card for Modern Horizons 3. He's able to bounce it back to my hand. I go ahead and bring this in. Normally I would be reactive, but I sense, because he's so low on land, that I do want to apply pressure here. And I waste my own land so I have enough mana or enough cards to escape Uro again. That was like kind of like a heads up play, but I just want to keep the forward momentum here. All right, so I attack for 2, and I have a lot of gas in hand. Unfortunately, I don't have any untapped mana to cast this Spell Pierce. I would love to have Spell Pierce mana up because he just doesn't have that many lands. But look at all those basics he has. And when I force the Fatal Push, he scoops. And, GG's all around. I tell him that I'm going to make a video if he wants to see my side of the game. James, if you're watching this, big fan of your videos as well. And we win. So, final thoughts on the deck list. Squidward is a genius. I didn't really know that much, embarrassingly, about SpongeBob, so I had to go read the Wikipedia entry for Squidward, the character that the Squidward is based off of. He spells his name with 2 Ds, by the way. So his list is super tight. Tamiyo, amazing new addition to the deck. I don't think I'm going to go back to Beans anytime soon. Tamiyo just feels so strong right now. Maybe after they ban Grief, there will be room for Beans to breathe. But right now, I think Tamiyo is 100% the way to go. She's just so strong. You saw all the value. You saw the ability for me to brainstorm and have her dodge removal, right? You saw the ultimate where I discarded 20 cards to my frog and ultimately killed my opponent when I was dead on board, effectively, with a single creature, right? Like, Tamiyo is truth. Like, she is amazing. So I hope you'll enjoy testing out Tamiyo as well. I hope you'll continue to play control decks, even in a toxic meta dominated by overpowered, scam-based decks and combo decks and things like that, because control mages, man, we have to be there. We have to hold the line. We have to keep the format from becoming completely degenerate. So let's keep it up. Until next time, be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.